Now, today's keynote presentation features John Pryor. John is the Vice President of Management Consulting, who will present highlights from the latest SMA client offering and upcoming book value proposition. Now, you might get a sense that we're actually bringing new offerings to the table for our clients. We talked about organic growth playbook. Now we're talking about value proposition, which is truly a misunderstood concept in our business. Over to you, John.
Great. Thank you, AJ. Thank you, Sarah. I was just in DC a couple of weeks ago visiting with the team out there, and was surprised actually to see the cherry blossoms in bloom. Okay, so let me share my screen here, and hopefully this will come through. All right, excellent. Okay, so some of you have heard earlier versions of this. We've been continuing to modify it. So big thanks to AJ, Liz, and Jock for continuing to help refine this, as well as to the rest of the consulting team that has been part of developing and delivering different pieces of this as we've been refining it. So thank you to all of you. Okay. So let's talk about value proposition. So value proposition is this oft-used term. We like to sort of describe it as tofu, similar to how we describe strategy. It's this idea that means everything to everyone, but isn't necessarily entirely clear what it is. Value proposition for a lot of people really starts to take on the competitive aspect. So why we're better than a competitor, or how we're going to position ourselves in the market. But the reality is it's not really about your competitors. What it's really about is the intersection between you and your customers. The competitors come later, but this value proposition question really sits at this idea of you and your customers. So the first part are really these internal questions that you have to ask yourself. Who are you? Who do you want to be? What type of company do you want to be? What value do you want to offer in the market? Harder for established companies. Oftentimes they've sort of arrived where they are and they're kind of rethinking about it. Easier for newer companies, but it's a hard question whether you're starting a new company or whether you're an established company. Really trying to deeply understand what is the place that your company seeks to stake out and why is an important part. And there's a second aspect that says, well, what are your target customer values? So we all go into business with an idea of who our customers will be. We want to understand what they value. And then there's a question about how do they perceive our offer? We'll get into that in a moment, but it's not just what they value, it's about how they perceive what we're actually offering. And like everything in the strategy world, or business world large, all iterative. So once you define it, you're going to interact with your customer, you're going to refine, interact, refine, and that's how it moves forward. So this idea that value proposition is central to strategy is really at the core of how we're thinking about value proposition. It is not a marketing exercise. It is not meant to be glossy, although that can be a subset and that can come later. But it's not meant to be this thing that is left to marketing communications folks and sort of left there. It's really meant to be central to who we are. And value proposition as a result, it's defined in our world in two different ways. The first part is a precursor. So it's really about defining who and what you are and how you're thinking about the world and where your company is going to go. And then there's a second piece of it that is attached to specific customers and attached to specific offers. But regardless of whether it's that enterprise value proposition or the offer value proposition, the intent is that they all need to be aligned. So that you can communicate internally and make decisions. This is really about making sure that you invest against what it is that you want to do, how you want to do it, and why you're doing it. Three sort of pieces. This first piece is who are we and who do we sell to? This is the first iterative aspect that we spoke about on the previous slide, about understanding who you are and who your customers are. There's a second aspect which overlaps with the where to play and the how to win, which is why are we the best choice for our customers? So what's the actual value that our specific offers offer to our customers. And then the last piece is about how we'll make it happen. And so these are the pull through that have to do with how we think about hiring, how we think about processes, how we think about investing, but all the aspects that will bring it specifically to fruition. So this first question around the enterprise value proposition is, why should people do business with you at all? There's a handful of great examples: Southwest, Northrop Grumman, Walt Disney Company, Ecolab. These are all companies that you're familiar with, and you're likely familiar with what their central value proposition is. I recognize Southwest can be a little bit controversial given the Christmas meltdown, but let's put that aside for just a moment as they address it. But Southwest's idea is this connecting people to what's important with their lives through reliable, friendly, low-cost air travel. And as a result, that's how they operate. That's how they set up their entire operations, is around connecting and this idea of how they actually go about their day-to-day operations, how they sell, what their operating model is, how they think about what aircraft they use. All of that is part and parcel to what Southwest has. Northrop Grumman, one of our favorite clients, their idea is they really think of themselves as doing first kind and only of a kind problem solving. They describe themselves as a technology company, not as an aerospace and defense company. As a result, they see themselves as solving these essentially unsolvable technical problems on behalf of their customers. Walt Disney, one of my personal favorites in terms of value proposition and how they think about it. So if you go on their website, they actually explicitly say, entertain, inform, and inspire people through the power of unparalleled storytelling. And everything they do is built around that storytelling. It's all built around this customer experience aspect, from how you enter the park to how you interact with people. There's this idea of everything they do is built around this experience that customers have. And so it's it's not described as the happiest place on earth without reason. They put a lot of effort into making sure that it delivers against that. And likewise, Ecolab, which has products and services around cleaning services, mostly industrial, restaurant, large scale. Their idea is partnering to make the world cleaner, safer, and healthier. And yes, they also sell soap, and yes, they also sell consulting services, but that's not really how they pitch themselves. How they pitch themselves is thinking about delivering cleaner, healthier worlds. When you look at their offerings around their restaurant services, it's not designed around, oh, buy these products so you can keep your restaurant clean. It's really designed around this concept of how they'll sell that value of a healthier restaurant. So how do we create an enterprise value proposition? So there's really these four ideas. The first part is understanding yourself. This idea that says, who do we want to be? And so that first part there is marked in green, yellow, and red based off your ability to influence it. So this is the internal aspect. Green is who are we today. The yellow part is who we want to be in the future. It's more yellow, you have control over it. You have to make decisions to do it. And then the red is, what's the future market look like? And that's in red because you only get a very limited aspect in that. So that's the first part of it, is identifying who exactly it is that you want to be as a company. That then interacts with this idea of customers, which says, okay, well, who are the customers that are out there that are going to place high value on what I do? So that's classic market segmentation to think about that. There's a lot of different ways to describe the market, but it's really about understanding that specific subset of people in the market who value what you do and how you choose to do it. And then the third part is about validating what customers actually think about you. This is an important aspect of it. And so I happen to have on there a graphic for a net promoter score, although there are a number of ways to identify a customer value analysis. One of the key aspects of understanding your customers is positioning yourself that it's insufficient to just say, my customers value thing X, I do thing X, therefore I'm good. You really have to understand the perception that your customers have. Do they know you do it? Do they value you over how they think about other aspects or other players? And then this last piece are the connections, which is, it doesn't really matter where you start on these. But it is an iterative process as you continue to refine who your customers should be, how you think about how you're defining your own value and what you want to be, and how your customers perceive you over time. The importance here is really making sure that these are all matched together, because any type of mismatch between them will create friction and challenge for you. The next part then says, okay, look, now that we've defined ourselves as a certain type of company and we really think about who we are and what we want to do, the question then says, what's the pull through to make sure that your products identify with that? And this is really important. If your product's value proposition is out of alignment with your enterprise value proposition, it's going to create a lot of friction for a number of reasons. First and foremost, it won't identify with your brand. It won't identify with what you're best at. And as a result, it's unlikely to provide the value that you say it will, or meet that value proposition, because it's not aligned with who you hire, how you think about innovation, how you think about investing, how you think about all of your other processes. So that's really the critical part. One caveat to that is we have worked with customers who are creating an offering that is outside of their core value proposition, but is a deliberate choice as they're thinking about it, has management attention, has management investment, and they're normally trying to make some sort of strategic pivot, and they're trying to determine whether or not that pivot is something they can or can't do. So it can happen, but it is few and far between, and it has to really be a very deliberate, focused reason. But let's talk about companies that do this particularly well or have over time. So in situ, which is now owned by Boeing, makes a product but originally sold this product called Scan Eagle. Scan Eagle is a full motion video, small scale UAV, originally designed for commercial operations for tuna fleets that were trying to find schools of tuna. Was not particularly successful in that. It was fine, but not particularly successful. But as they have pivoted themselves into the defense market, their enterprise value proposition is around this idea that says helping defense and government make quicker, more informed decisions to get the warfighter home safely. That's sort of their catch line. And you'll notice that that's really about their value proposition is around decision making and the speed of decision making, not any type of product that they sell. Scan Eagle itself happened to be to the U.S. Navy, but the larger sort of storyline that they had with the U.S. Navy was this idea that they were going to focus on what the Navy mostly needed, which was full motion video. And as a result, they divorced themselves from the idea of selling a program of record and selling aircraft that would have to be ingested by the Navy, operated by the Navy, maintained by the Navy, manned by the Navy. And they just went to this idea of video by the hour. It unlocked all kinds of things. The type of money that could be used to pay for it, the scale at which it could be deployed, the speed at which it could be deployed, and it got the Navy their core piece, which was full motion video. And so this is a very clear alignment. Apple, another aspect. So Apple defines themselves as really an integrator. It's this idea of hardware, software, and services all working together. Their customers tend to be brand conscious. They pay a premium. Their penetration in their markets isn't necessarily higher than other offerings, a 5%-ish on Macs, and a much smaller percentage of cell phones than Samsung has. But they like one-stop users as well. And so the real innovation on the iPod wasn't the iPod itself. There were plenty of MP3 players out there. There were a handful of significant innovations around touch, feel, use, which was really around brand. Sometimes they define themselves as a product company, and depending on your view, you may buy into that. I view them as a brand company myself. But the real innovations that they had with their MP3 player was iTunes and the music store. So iTunes became this effective way to manage all of your music at one point in time. And the music store broke the monopoly on this idea of you had to buy CDs, download CDs. So the idea that they renegotiated so you could buy songs 99 cents a piece was a critical aspect of it. Sonos Roam. I love Sonos products. Anybody who's looking to buy speakers, you can't go wrong with Sonos. I worked for them briefly. They are a fantastic company. But Sonos Roam is interesting. Sonos, they have this idea of connecting families. and listening to music out loud. Their whole concept is around people listen to music independently. They listen on earbuds, they listen by themselves, and they wanted to open up music to everyone. They had this very hard and fast rule that wasn't part of their value proposition, but was part of their technical value proposition, or their technical thinking, which was only Wi-Fi. Bluetooth systems were unreliable and therefore didn't work. What ended up happening is they recognized that they had a lot of people who were listening out loud or outside away from their, that is not me sneezing or coughing, I promise. I see Nicole looking at me sternly, and it wasn't me sneezing. This idea that you would listen outside away from your Wi-Fi, they broke their rule and they went with a Bluetooth offering, which was really about meeting their customers where they were and changing their own internal processes and decisions. And then the last example is the Boeing 787. So 787. This idea that Boeing wants to have a complete family of commercial aircraft, and they do long haul. Their customers are long haul airlines who are looking to break into new markets or expand point to point connection. The innovation here was they rethought air travel, long haul air travel, rather than doing the classic hub and spoke model, big city to big city, and then smaller aircraft to move you around, which is the model that the A380 used. Boeing said, we're going to make a highly capable, highly efficient, comfortable aircraft that can go 14 hours from Arkansas Walmart headquarters to China, where the manufacturers are, smaller cities in China. And that was a substantial breakthrough. So how do we think about developing our own value offer with respect to this? Well, the first key here is thinking about what are the sources of value that you have. So we have a way of thinking about sources of value around the offer itself, which is that center line. But doing kind of technical is only so interesting. There's these other acts as well. So the first idea is thinking about what are the sources of value that your offerings have. And identifying dimensions beyond the core offering. The easiest thing to do is to write any type of product technical offering or service technical offering. It's observable, it's easy to replicate. It's really these other things around infrastructure and experience that become the much more interesting aspects. The second piece beyond that of trying to think beyond the core is really thinking about connecting a number of these together. So the more of these value sources of value you can put together really creates these amplification and outsized effects that are, one, difficult for your competitors to imitate, but more importantly, more crisply and definitively outline and clarify what your value proposition is at the offer level. Again, the idea that you have to validate this. So if you've created this bundle of value, you've created a value proposition, you have to validate that people are actually experiencing it that way and understand that. And then you need to make sure that it's aligned with your enterprise value proposition. Again, completely iterative. This is the whole idea. But the idea here is that you have to understand what your sources of value are and move in and understand that. So that's the essential aspects of both enterprise and offer value proposition. Now, specific to our industry and others, there are things that are often associated with value proposition. They're critical to they're essential to competitive bids. They are not value propositions. This idea of capture strategy, which is an internal facing document, and customer facing win strategy, how you're going to go about actually pursuing any type of opportunity in the B2G or B2B world, and this idea that win themes, how you're going to communicate that throughout your proposal. Absolutely essential in those worlds that have a competitive bid process where your value proposition has to now be articulated, not just at the enterprise and offer level, but explicitly written to in a proposal. Yeah. Likewise, a way to think about that. Yep. Sorry, AJ, did you?
No, keep on going. Keep on going.
Oh, sorry. So a way to think about that as you're writing to this in a proposal is features, benefits, and discriminators, which we all understand. Really, the idea are these benefits is really what you're speaking to, because the features are just a description of it. The discriminators are why pick you over a competitor. The value proposition part vis-a-vis a proposal, competitive proposal, B2B or B2G, it doesn't matter, is this idea of being able to pair those benefits against the RFP process to be able to clearly and articulately speak against what the customer need is and how you fit and match that.
Great.
Practically speaking, this is how SMA goes about doing this. So we have a worksheet. Our teams are out there doing this every single day. The capture managers and proposal managers are out there doing this every day. It's really about understanding and defining this process of how that values. But again, it's still a pull through of enterprise to offer. The last piece just happens to be, if there's a competitive bid process, being able to articulate and describe it in your proposal response.
Thank you, John.
So to close this, yes.
Go ahead. You want to mention?
So the last thought here is this idea that your value proposition, again, as we've talked about, it starts and ends with value. It's and it should be clear, concise, and pull through, because it's going to drive everything about from who you are to the markets and customers select to the offers that you develop, and then all of your various supporting systems. So let me pause there, because I recognize we're at the bottom of the hour.
Thank you so much, John. I think this is an incredible thing that we're doing. We're actually going to probably need to adjust our capture and proposal process to deliberately actually identify a separate step in the process to talk about value proposition and how that relates to win strategy. So we're also looking forward to the upcoming value proposition book as an addition to our essential guide series. We're going to get that published this May.